This is it! Finally, on Tuesday, October 11, 2022, in Japan, the borders will be officially open to overseas independent tourists and travelers. No more tour guides, no more package tours, no more having to sign up with a Japanese tour company or travel agency, no more applying for a visa prior to arrival. It has been over 2.5 years since Japan originally closed its borders to overseas tourists. And although the Japanese government attempted twice on June 10 and September 7 of this year to so-called open up the borders, these two attempts ended up only being head fakes or false starts, and both entry policies utterly failed. But this time should be different. Hi, I'm Mike Matsuno, and this is the Man in Japan channel. On this channel, we talk about recent news and trends in Japan. If you want to be kept updated on what's going on in Japan, please hit that like button and subscribe. You may recall that on May 26, 2022, Prime Minister Kishida gave a big speech about how Japan was going to open up its borders to the world and emulate the same open border policies as the other G7 countries. Following his speech on June 10th, the new entry policy was implemented by the Japanese government to open up the borders to overseas tourists, but they had to come in on group package tours. Do you know how many foreign tourists actually came to Japan from June to August 2022 on the new Prime Minister Kishida's open border policy? As you may guess, the group package tour limitation did not sit well with potential overseas visitors and tourists who wanted to come to Japan. A total of 18,981 tourists entered Japan from June through August. That averages to about 6,300 tourists a month, which was dismal when compared to 2019, when over 2.5 million tourists were entering Japan each month. As I've said before in earlier videos, the reason for the unsuccessful entry policies was that the Japanese government was out of touch with the reality of what foreign tourists required and wanted. So after the 4-month learning curve for the Japanese government, the October 11th policy was radically modified and basically returned Japan back to the original entry policy that Japan used before COVID happened. So to summarize the new October 11th, 2022 policy, if your country in pre-COVID was one of the 68 countries who had a visa-free entry agreement with Japan, you qualify for the visa on arrival, where they simply stamp a tourist visa into your passport upon arrival. The tourist visa is usually good for 90 days, but some countries like Indonesia and Thailand have a 15-day limit. If your country is not one of the 68 countries, then you'll have to go through the same visa process as people from your country did prior to COVID. When you fly into Japan, you will need to show certified proof that you have at least 3 doses of an accepted vaccine that is on the World Health Organization's emergency use list. So this is different from the original list of accepted vaccines that the Ministry of Health had published before. The WHO list is expanded to accept more types of vaccines. I'll put a link in the description below. If you are not vaccinated at least 3 times, then you will need a certified 72-hour pre-departure PCR negative test that is accepted by the Japanese government. There's a form on the Ministry of Health website that you can take to your PCR testing institution, have them fill it out, and then you can hand in or send in the form and the test result together. I will also list the form's link in the description below. I've heard some other YouTube videos say that a doctor's signature is required on the 72-hour pre-departure PCR test. I really don't know anything about this. When I returned from Hawaii back in April, I had a PCR test done with no doctor's signature and I was able to enter. Any of the places like in the United States that offer free PCR testing probably won't have a doctor's signature. So there still seems to be some gray area regarding the PCR test and what is required by the Japanese government. Of course, the safest way is to have your 72-hour pre-departure PCR test done at a certified location that has a doctor and staff to sign off on the test. But of course, this will cost more. You may want to try and contact the Ministry of Health and write or talk to them directly. Daily arrival entry caps that were raised to 50,000 entries a day on September 7th no longer will have a daily cap from October 11th. I guess there is no travel insurance required, as there was nothing mentioned in the media or on any of the ministry announcements. If your home or work health insurance does not cover you overseas, you may still want to get travel insurance just to be on the safe side in the case that you come down with COVID or some illness or injury, especially if you are older in years like me. For example, like in Japan, Japanese health insurance does not cover anything outside of Japan. That is why almost all Japanese purchase travel insurance when they travel out of Japan. I always purchase travel insurance whenever I travel outside of Japan. The weekend was probably the primary reason that Prime Minister Kishida so quickly pushed through the most recent entry policy changes from October 11, even though he had just made some new changes that were implemented only a month ago on September 7. Prime Minister Kishida is hoping that the incoming tourists will spend yen and inject it back into the economy, and that will strengthen the yen. In addition, I also think the Japanese government wanted to capitalize on the autumn foliage and the changing color of the fall leaves, which is one of the largest draws for overseas and domestic tourists. In Japan, the changing autumn leaf colors and spring cherry blossoms are the two most popular tourist seasons to visit Japan. For some places like Hokkaido, winter is also a huge draw for skiers, snowboarders, and people who like winter sports. Summer is the only real season that I discourage people from coming to Japan unless you have no other time off. Although it may be too soon for many people, this fall 2022 may be the ideal time to visit Japan as overseas tourism will return, but I do not believe there will be such a huge instant influx of foreign tourists. It will take some time for Japan's tourism industry to get back into the game. Moreover, Chinese tourists who pre-COVID accounted for 30% of the total inbound tourists to Japan are still under a zero COVID lockdown and will not be coming to Japan this fall, which would make the tourist sites at least 30% less crowded. So it may be a good time to come in the fall or early winter 2022 when foreign tourist numbers still will be most likely low. I'm guessing that it will take at least 1 to 2 years for international tourist numbers to get even close to what they were in 2019. The Japanese government is also pushing a domestic travel campaign for residents living in Japan, and that begins on the same date as the first international arrivals on October 11, 2022. So if you come to Japan this fall season, you may also see some local residents moving about this fall. However, since schools are in session and there are no major holidays in fall, I think the local travelers will be mainly limited to seniors traveling within Japan. Masks are still here for a while. What I heard is that masks will continue to be worn until a Japanese pharmaceutical company can develop, test, and distribute a COVID medicine that can be taken orally in Japan. You may recall I made a video a while back and I talked about the reasoning and need for a Japanese developed COVID medicine. Shinogi Pharmaceutical Company had applied for approval to the government with a new possible COVID medicine back in August, but was denied. So although most pharmaceutical companies in Japan continue to work on developing a new COVID medicine, so far there has been no encouraging news. Needless to say, the elephant in the room is still the big issue of not having enough COVID hospital beds. No one seems to be talking about this except me. In a past video, I talked about the deeply rooted reason why Japan has been so reluctant and hesitant to reopen until now. In another video, I mentioned that Prime Minister Kishida said he would secure 50,000 COVID beds for the next surge, when presently they only have 28,000 COVID beds available to the public, which is definitely not enough. Presently, the government is discussing how to set and revise new laws and fines for hospitals that do not comply and open up more COVID beds during a pandemic. We will see how successful the government can be against the strong medical lobby. So for now, masks are here to stay. But you can take your mask off when you're eating and drinking at a restaurant, when you're taking photos, and when you're outside where there are not many people in close proximity, like this. But just so you know that wherever you go, 99% of the people will be wearing a mask. I also wanted to talk about the My SOS app that is used when you first arrive in Japan. About a month ago, I returned from a business trip from Indonesia where I had to use my SOS app on my arrival back to Japan. Now things may change for October 11th, but I think the basic steps will be quite similar. But anyway, just to give you an idea of what to expect, I will share with you what I had to do. But please just keep in mind that there may be some changes when you arrive in Japan. To save a lot of time and trouble, download the My SOS app a couple of days before you leave to the airport. Fill in all the personal information, which also included at that time my flight and seat number. Answer the questionnaire, do the pledge, and take a photo and upload both your passport ID page and certified vaccination information onto the app. There are 4 colors of the My SOS app. Red is the color when you initially download the app and fill out the information. After you complete filling in and sending in all the required information, you will have to wait a few hours, sometimes up to a couple of days. But if everything was properly done and the Japanese government accepts and approves all your information and the material and content that you sent in, the My SOS app color will change from red to blue or green. If something is missing or not accepted, the My SOS app color will be yellow or red. You will have to try and resubmit or talk to the airport staff after you arrive in Japan. Upon arrival to Japan, be sure to have your cell phone out and on to the My SOS page, which should be blue or green. When you reach the first checkpoint, you will just show your blue or green My SOS app to the staff attendant and just keep walking through. At the second checkpoint area, you will have to line up. This time, you will scroll down on your My SOS app to where there's a QR code. And then at the next checkpoint window, you will simply scan your QR code onto the QR scanner device that they will have. Once that is done, they will give you the blue quarantine paper that shows that you have been cleared, and you will show that blue approval form to the immigration person at the next counter. Once you get your tourist visa stamped into your passport at immigration, you head to the baggage claim. You're done with the My SOS app. If you have not completed the My SOS app, or you have not received the blue or green colored My SOS app page, then you will have to step out of the original line and go and talk to an airport staff person about what you have to do. The main reason for the app is that if you upload your vaccine certification in advance and it's approved and you receive the blue confirmation My SOS window, you will not have to show any hard copies or vaccine card on arrival. But of course, it's always important to keep a hard copy with you just in case something happens with the app or they need to confirm your information. But for the most part, once you complete the My SOS app and get the blue or green window, you will not have to show your vaccine certification or documents, and once you pick up your baggage and clear customs, you're free. Welcome to Japan. Anyway, there are a lot of people in the hospitality and tourist-related businesses in Japan who have painfully struggled to get through COVID these last 2.5 years, and they are now anxiously awaiting for your visit. Hey, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. If I can ask you a favor, if you haven't subscribed yet, you like the content and the video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps validate what I do. It helps motivate me to make more videos and keeps me moving forward. Also, recently I just started making 1-minute YouTube Shorts videos about travel and food in Japan. If you're interested, the link is below in the description. Until next time, stay well, stay safe. See you in Japan. Arigato.